Welcome to That Entrepreneur Life, a podcast about entrepreneurship that takes you from idea to launch and beyond. Each week, your hosts, Andrew Lees and Clint McPherson, discuss different business topics aimed at adding value to any entrepreneur's journey.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of That Entrepreneur Life. I'm Andrew Lees, here with my co-host, Clint McPherson. What's going on, brother?
Not much, my man. What is up, everybody? I'm excited to be here for another episode, like always, guys. But enough about us. Let's go ahead and kick this thing off by welcoming our special guest, Shayna Rose, to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys today?
Very good. Yeah.
Excellent.
Shayna, yeah, it's great to have you on the show today. But before we kind of get into everything and ask you a few questions, could you just, introduce yourself and tell our audience a little bit about what you do?
Well, my name is Shayna Rose, and I am an artist, songwriter, actress, performer, and creative entrepreneur.
Wow.
Yeah, most people know me from my starring roles as Marina on Nickelodeon's The Fresh Beat Band, or as Stephanie Johnson on Days of Our Lives. And I've sort of had my hand in a little bit of everything when it comes to entertainment entrepreneurialism. That's a word.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's like a quick background on me, who I am.
That's awesome, Shayna.
Very cool.
Like we said, we appreciate you being on, and the more we dug down into what you do, and we're very excited to actually bring you on the show. And with all that said, though, as a producer, a songwriter, and social action artist, can you take us and tell us what inspired your belief in having a responsibility for shaping the culture you are a part of, and how does that work with bringing people closer together?
Yeah. So I think that, when you have sort of a long career in the entertainment industry, you start to see these patterns, and you start to see that kind of old adage of life imitating art, imitating life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the more you kind of experience that, the more you really gain this sense of like, oh my gosh, what I'm putting out into the world as an artist, whether it's a songwriter or an actress, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you are, a painter, it doesn't matter. You start to see how that really does shape and influence the mindset, what people are thinking about, right? Because you're thinking about it. So it makes sense, right? Like if you were thinking about it to create it, it's because other people are thinking about it. And what you start to see is that when you perpetuate a narrative or a story, that kind of gets more and more deeply ingrained in what we all think about and what we all do. And it becomes this revolving cycle. So as an artist, you kind of, at least for me, I started to wake up and think more deeply and realize, like, gosh, if I start to change the stories, I'm going to start changing what people are thinking about. And there really is no power greater than that, because all of the conflicts that we see in the world and between each other are really the things that we think about, right? It's the core belief system that shapes the decisions that we make and how we view each other and the world. So the artist has this like much deeper responsibility sometimes than I think we even realize. And because right now the culture has sort of become, and I don't mean this exact moment, but I mean, the last 20 or 30 years in particular have become so much about just the money grab, just the fame, just the success.
Sure.
And I think we're seeing the results of that. And we forget that as the artists, we kind of help perpetuate that idea and those priorities. And it's time for us to take a step back, look at the bigger picture, and figure out how we can help now.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, instead of trying to figure out, formula for success and how can we, make the most dollars on this, putting whatever art it is out there, whether it's a TV show, a movie, a podcast or whatever, that we really, everybody who's putting content out there has to be responsible, which is, I think, a great word that you used. And sometimes we don't really even realize, you don't realize that you're having as big of an impact as you really are. So you really do have that responsibility to tell the right story and, make sure that people understand the truth. So that's very cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so how did you get into acting in the first place? You're on Nickelodeon. You've been on a couple shows. How did that happen? And what was it like being on, working with Nickelodeon and being on the Fresh Beat band?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really got started as a young person in my hometown, just doing local and regional professional musical theater. And then I kind of had this, moment of the fork in the road when it was time to decide to go to college or decide to just start to pursue a career in entertainment. And, the more advice I got from people, I just sort of saw this really dark path potentially ahead if I chose to, take the traditional road and go to college of just like debt, number one, right?
Oh, yeah.
2, the 4 years of a setback in being able to gain traction and momentum of, building up a resume and credits in the entertainment industry, which is like so important.
Yeah.
And also just not having like actual real life experience. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to take this humongous risk and I'm just going to move to LA at 18 years old and try to figure it out. So I did not know one person when I moved there. It was actually for sure one of the craziest things I've ever done.
Wow.
But, just like all entrepreneurial endeavors, like that's the whole sort of thrill and fear of it, right? Like you go and you just start to navigate and figure it out piece by piece, one little lesson at a time. So, an acting class led to getting a manager, led to getting an agent, led to getting a first few couple speaking roles. And just like as the years go on, treacherous, difficult years.
Yeah, right.
But like, if you have what it takes, like you can get traction. And so I think that, those were just sort of like I had all these different experiences that just led to the ability to like get the next role. But what I saw, and this kind of goes back to the first question, working for these major networks was sadly the lack of thought put into why are we here? What are we making this show for?
Right.
Who are we trying to impact? And the majority of time is spent thinking about the bottom line, ratings, viewership, how are we going to make the money? How are we going to profit off of this? And so that kind of started to lead me to, transitioning from, in front of the camera and being the artist and the performer to behind the camera and being the producer and being the music producer, being the writer. Because like I said, I kind of started to realize, there was like a greater call and need for that. So they were amazing experiences and I wouldn't trade them for anything. They were amazing learning experiences and I loved every minute of it. But I'm not going to lie, like the behind the scenes of the entertainment industry is not necessarily filled with tremendous values. Not that you thought it was, but
right. Yeah. I think there's a feeling out there that, I think a lot of people kind of think, there's maybe a little darker behind the scenes or, who knows what's going on back there.
Yeah.
Especially within the last few years, things that have come out. So
exactly. Yeah. No, it's there's a darker tale to be told there than we often see. With the glitz and glam. But again, that's where I think it's so hard, but it's the responsibility of the individual artist to help sort of shape the future of the industry. Because look, they can't make negative content if we don't choose to participate in it, right?
That's true.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah.
And there's that fear of like, but if I don't take this opportunity, if I don't take this role, if I don't whatever, well, then somebody else will. So we feel this immense amount of pressure. And I think there just has to be more of like a solidarity in our mentality and in our desire to like want to reshape things. That has to drive us.
No, I love what you said because you can relate everything that you said to entrepreneurship, right? Because that's basically what you did. You took a risk too, the moving out to LA, not knowing exactly how everything was going to transpire, come together. But the same thing is taking that risk as an entrepreneur for moving forward. And that's basically what you did, whether it was being an artist in the entrepreneurial, mindset and going that way. Because a lot of people have a misconception because you're a musician, because you're an artist, because you're this or that you're not an actual entrepreneur. But you have to be. that is like a negative connotation, because it's like, what are you talking about? How are they not? They might not coin themselves as entrepreneurs, because, you know, it's I don't know, sometimes people have a negative connotation with that word, right? And so when it comes down to it, it's like, okay, you are taking everything in your own hands. You have to make things happen. You have to go sit there and try out or audition for the show or this or that to get it. And that's the ups and downs from that journey. I could just imagine how crazy it was, right? Because you're going to have highs and lows just like any other entrepreneur. I mean, it's amazing what you went through in the shows that you've been on, and where you started and where you're at now. Is like, once I'm starting to look at your credentials and everything, I'm like, man, you know. And I think when you're in that spot though that you did, right, and you're going from the actor to behind the camera, that's even more inspiring, because you're actually seeing how all those pieces fit together and you're making it happen. And I love that.
100%. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think the only difference really is that, as opposed to selling your business, right, as opposed to selling your product or your startup or whatever, you're selling yourself. But you do have to apply all of the same, you know, ideas and techniques and skills, right? You have to figure out, how do I market myself? How do I get myself exposure? You know, what do I do when I face rejection over and over? What do I do when I can't feed myself? You know, it really is. It's just, you know, that's why I say creative entrepreneur, because it's just kind of like same lifestyle, just in a little bit different direction.
Exactly. Yeah, you really are marketing yourself. And I mean, there's no real, I mean, there's a path, but it's not like, I mean, I think with entrepreneurship, there's no one path, you know, there's no, okay, I go to school for, you know, I go to college for 4 years. I major in finance, and then I go get a job in finance. It's not like, that's so straightforward. It's not that it's easy, but I think it's straightforward. I think one of the things to me that I think about with entrepreneurship is that it's not straightforward. There's so much potential. Like, that's what's amazing about it.
You don't even have to have the degree you just talked about, right?
Exactly.
As entrepreneurship, you don't have to have any of that. It's like,
right.
That was your story. And then somebody else over here that didn't even have this 4-year degree. I mean, some of the most successful people in the world to date didn't even go to college, right? Some of the most genius people in the world, like Albert Einstein. I mean, come on, all these people were just bad at standardized testing. And that's basically what school is. If you're good at standardized testing, you're going to be good at school. It's like, no, this is garbage. I was good at school, and I was horrible on SATs and ACTs, or whatever you call the ABCDs and EFGs. I'm just like, look, I don't like this. My mind shuts off. You put me through any other, like a class with anybody, and we're all reading and learning from the same book, I'm just as good as you. But you throw me in one of those things where it's like, okay, you have to be a speed reader to get through this section, and I'm going to be horrible because I read slowly. It takes me a lot more, you know, to develop it. It's like, okay, I read through it one time, I don't recall everything I just read, right? I'm not that person that just, like, it's a gift for some people and it's not a gift for some people like me. I'm sitting there reading things, and then when I'm 30 minutes into this reading session, I'm like, okay, I just remember the last 15 seconds maybe. Everything else I started out with, I'm going to have to go back. So guess what? I'm bombing this test, like, now. Like, I'm not going to be the guy that gets the perfect score.
That was me.
Yeah, I mean, we all can relate to that, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's incredible.
Yes.
So Shayna, a little quick transition for you though, and transition in the discussion. When did your transition from acting to music actually happen, and why did you decide to start a production company?
Yeah.
Was that always something that you were working on when you were doing it?
So it's funny. It actually kind of was the other way around. People just don't know.
Okay.
So my whole journey actually started with music, and that was like my goal for forever. And when I moved to LA, really, I wanted to be a singer-songwriter. That was the plan. And the acting sort of happened, which I always make jokes. I say, I have the only Jewish mother on earth who would tell me to go be an actress to make money. That just like doesn't happen, you know? It's like in our culture, it's like you go be a doctor, you go be a lawyer. You don't tell your kid, go be an actor to make money. But my mom's kind of psychic. So as I was trying to like get the music thing going, she was just like, audition for commercials, do something. She was so desperate because I literally was basically starving. And so that was kind of how the acting thing happened. So I kind of in the back of my mind, and again, talk about entrepreneurial mindset. I was like, okay, so I'm going to leverage this acting career and I'm going to use the acting career to sell the music career. That was,
Okay.
that was like always the plan.
I love it. Yeah.
And then it was sort of, it kind of would, sometimes sort of happen. And then I felt like, the acting would kind of overtake it and there just wouldn't be the time for the music. And, I just would have to like take moments of breaks and put it on the back burner. But like, I remember when I was doing Days of Our Lives and I would be on set, filming my scenes, and then I would leave and, on set, I'd be trying to go to the music department and pitch my songs to try to like get them on the show.
Like that's where your real passion was.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all. Yeah.
So that was even sort of like how and why the Fresh Beat Band happened, because the Fresh Beat Band was a music show. And obviously I had seen a lot of other young people come from Disney or Nickelodeon shows and kind of be able to use that as a springboard for their music careers. And I think what I realized though was different about me and why it maybe wasn't as easy for me to transition from the acting into the music was that I really had something to say and I was a little bit too free thinking and independent. So in those scenarios, you really kind of have to be willing to be a part of the machine. And I'm a rebel. So I wasn't really good at like taking that kind of direction and just swallowing the pill of like, be this machine, be this, to the
fit
world.
Into this mold forever.
Yeah, I was terrible at it. Like I would even try sometimes and then I couldn't. It was just like word vomit and, the things, everything would just ooze out of me, like all of my truth and authenticity. And so finally, I just kind of made this decision one day. I was like, you know what? If I want to do this, I'm really going to have to take it on to myself and make it happen. So I was like, I'm just going to start learning how to produce music. And I tried to teach myself Logic, through like YouTube videos and tutorials. And just like we were just talking about, right? Like everyone learns in a different way. Mm-hmm. I cannot learn anything on a YouTube video. Like, God bless the people who can watch a YouTube video and learn how to do something. Like that's amazing. It is not me. So I ended up taking like a Logic Apple certification course. And it was the best thing I ever did. It was only a week long. It was a crash course. It was 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you get your Logic certification. And that was kind of like the beginning of the whole thing for me. And now I've been doing it, almost 6 years, producing for myself, for other artists. Finally had my first Billboard #1 gold record for a Disney movie soundtrack. Like it just kind of started happening once I took it into my own hands. And so I think that, again, like when young artists come to me and they're like, well, what do I do? I'm like, learn how to produce, learn how to be a music maker on your own so that you're not at the mercy of a company, a label, whoever it is, and that also you can say what you want to say. You can be an artist that has a perspective and a point of view, and you don't have to feel afraid and limited with what you want to share.
Right. Yeah. So your voice isn't kind of molded into what somebody else wants. So you get to have that control.
Exactly.
And basically you're creating your own business in that, in that sense, because you have, like you said, you're not at the mercy of another company. I mean, you have to work with other people, right, to get your art out there. But if you can produce it, if you can create it and distribute it, I mean, especially now that distribution is anybody can do it. Not that it's easy, but at least now, anybody has the ability to put their work out there, and they're not, they don't have to go through certain channels anymore.
100%.
How much more satisfying it is to you when you're able to take that into your own hands, right? You're able to action it and make it happen. Or like if it doesn't happen, it's because of you, right? Because a lot of times we're our own worst enemy. We sit around and don't do anything because like if you just start a business and you don't advertise, you don't do this, you don't get the word out, nobody's just going to show up, right? So you putting yourself in good positions and leveraging your experience from what you've been exposed to and what you've actually experienced and what you've been around is huge. And it has to be awesome to know that you can show others and lead others down that path to success by actually putting them under your, production studio and saying, look, I can leverage whatever I know and whatever I've learned and put you in a better position. And I think that's awesome.
100%. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a pretty good segue into the next question. So every entrepreneur needs to know their why. And for artists, it's no different. How did you find your why, and how does that help with your success as a producer, musician, and as an actress?
Yeah, I mean, I think I found my why the same way that I would tell anyone to find theirs, which is what gets you emotional, what gets you pissed off, what gets you feeling torn up inside, what gets you riled up. Like, that's it. That's your why. What gets you out of bed in the morning? What's going to make you go down to a protest? What's going to make you speak out on your social media platform? Like, that's it. That's, if it's mental health, great. If it's, the environment, great. If whatever it is, if it's, women's rights, great. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. If it's kids, it doesn't matter. But I think that, when you don't have a why, it becomes really easy to get discouraged because, right, as we all know, again, as entrepreneurs, there are so many ups and downs, and honestly, there are more downs than ups, right? I always tell people, when it comes to auditions, just as an example, if you're booking 1 out of every 100 auditions, you're doing really good. So we could just take that, right, and almost apply it to anything.
Yeah.
So, that means you're going to have to feel rejection 99 more times than a success. And if you don't have a why, I assure you, you're going to be like, forget this. This was the worst idea ever. Why am I doing this? All I experience is rejection.
Yeah.
But when you have a why, you're no longer focused on the rejection. You're focused on the journey. You're like, I'm on a path.
Right.
I'm here to do something. So no matter how much anybody says no, what's still propelling me forward is that deeper purpose. And I think that that's actually intrinsically more of a human necessity than we even give it credit for. Because when we start to get focused on the superficial things, we start to feel sort of like that hollow, right, emptiness inside. We start to ask ourselves more like, well, what am I doing this for? But when you have that why, it just gives you that fuel and you just keep going. So, I mean, I think that that's what I would tell anybody. I don't even care if you're starting an e-commerce business online, right? I have a friend that has an incredible e-commerce business selling analog music gear. And, we talk about his why a lot because sometimes he's like, I don't know what I'm doing this for. And I'm like, what do you mean? You're empowering people to create and make the world a better place. That's what you're doing. You're empowering creators. What an incredible job you have. And then when he starts to think about it like that, he's like, whoa, you're right. I have an amazing business.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's really about.
Yeah, I think all entrepreneurs, we can get defeated sometimes because we start we doubt ourselves from time to time, right? We question our why from time to time. But that's just being a human and being natural. But if you can see the successful entrepreneurs compared to the other entrepreneurs that might not see as much success, is they don't take a step back enough. And then they say, okay, this is my why. And this is why I'm really doing this. And your why can change. Don't get me wrong. It could change from, and you can actually mold it to something else. But at the end of the day, you have a path that you're going down. And again, some people get discouraged. They hear the no's. And I love what you said about that. It's like, once you know your why, those no's should not even matter because you're going to hear no all the time. You just have to get excited about the yeses that come your way because they're going to come, especially if you're doing the right thing, especially if your journeys, you're going down the right path. The yeses will come and you just embrace the journey. Don't get defeated because somebody says no. If me or Andrew accepted that, we could fold up our tent and take it to the house, right? But you don't do that. You don't get in your own way. You don't become your own worst enemy. You have to love yourself. You got to embrace yourself and embrace the journey. And it's all about, hey, I can do this. If you can sell to one person, you can sell to anybody. You just have to figure out the right way to do it.
100%.
Yeah, I kind of think about the no's in a more positive way, or I try to, because it doesn't feel positive all the time. But really, if you get a no, it's a great opportunity to step back and think about, why did I not explain myself clearly enough? Especially if you're marketing a product or a service, or even entertainment. It's like, okay, is there anything I need to change? Can I present this differently?
Yeah.
Or is that person not part of my target audience? And and if so, who is my target audience? Who are because not everybody's gonna be excited about what you're offering. So I think it just helps to really, if everybody said yes, I mean, that'd be great, but at the same time, you'd never have any perspective, any different perspective on, and you'd always think that
your ego would be so huge
it'd be
that you're
massive.
like, I'd never fail. And I mean, I look at no's as a failure to some extent, right? You have to fail somewhere along the line. So it's like, hey, am I not selling stuff? If all you're hearing is no's, you have to change and adjust something. I'm not saying, hear no's and just be like, still have the smile on your face forever and keep going forward, because the definition of insanity, right, is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. And so at the end of the day, if you hear nothing but no's, yeah, you need to change the course of what you're pitching or what you have, and make sure that your product or service or your art form is solving a problem or giving somebody hope or whatever it is, right? Because that's why a lot of people listen to music, is because they have that connection with somebody, or that artist, they have a connection with them because they can relate to them. Same way with a product. I have a connection with the product and I can relate to it and why it solves that problem for me. And I think, again, like it's one of those things, is like, if you have to change course, if you hear the no's all the time, and to make sure you're getting some yeses sprinkled in there. And then once you get those yeses, it just becomes natural. It's like, again, solving that problem is, hey, is this my right target audience? How did they even get in my funnel? Or how did they get down this far in the path to where I just got rejected? And they were probably the wrong person for you anyways. And a lot of those no's are in good faith. I think it's like, that person said no because they don't need to be in my story. Right. So that's how I view that.
I think that there's a trick that I like to use that I recommend also, which is, you can find one friend, one buddy, one mentor, one person that you really trust that will give you no BS feedback, like real no BS feedback. You will go so much further. Because sometimes what happens is, right, on like from the marketplace, we're hearing no. But then from all the people close to us, we're hearing like, oh, but you're so great. It's so great. You're so great. Because like, they don't really want to tell you,
exactly.
Yeah.
right? Like, what's going on? Yeah. So I think like, if you can find that one person to give you constructive feedback and be honest with you about where you might need to make adjustments, then you're right. You can navigate those no's in a different way. So I really do highly recommend finding someone that will tell you you stink, so that you can get better.
Just be brutally honest. And yes. I love asking for that feedback from my friends, right? It's like, look, hey, I'm showing you this, or I'm gonna give you this idea. I'm gonna plant the seed in your head, and just give me. I don't want any of the punches pulled. If you're gonna shoot whatever it is, let it fly. Let me get the hit to the face, because I want to know that I'm set up for success. I don't like you said. There's so many friends that I have that where I showed them something. Oh, that's perfect, man. And then at the end of the day, you hear him tell Joe or somebody that, hey, dude, it's not what you think it is, right? Like, he's just trying to set you up because they believe in you. But at the end of the day, they don't think what you set up was the right thing. But I'm like, man, why can't you tell me that, right?
That's right. That's right. No, they say you want to fail hard and you want to fail fast.
Right.
Yep.
Because, right, then you're just going to learn that much quicker how to pivot.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so I think this is a perfect segue to this question too. So through your entrepreneurial journey, Shayna, from the highs into the lows, what has been the most difficult thing about being an entrepreneur and an artist?
Okay, this is a deep answer.
I love it.
Bring it on.
I'm just getting you ready, guys.
Do it.
It's self-talk. Self-talk is the key to succeeding at anything. And we really don't give it as much credence as we should. because when we have negative self-talk, again, we start to weave together a story for ourselves where we start to work against ourselves because we start to take on the emotions of that inner narrative, right? So if I'm just so down on myself, like this is never going to happen, you know, what am I doing this for? I really do suck. I'm never going to make it. Well, we start to then take on that emotional energy. And then when we go out to sell, when we go out to pitch, we start to present that emotional energy almost subconsciously, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens? The sales get worse. The opportunities become less. And we become this self-perpetuating cycle then where we almost, we're generating the negativity all on our own. And then we're like, it's reinforced by ourselves. We're like, see, it isn't going to go anywhere. See, right?
Great point. Yeah.
And so I think that if I was going to tell any struggling entrepreneur, they're like, oh, my business isn't working. What do I do? You know, my art isn't getting off the ground. What do I do? I would say the first place to start really is meditate, get those positive affirmations going, get your energy in the right place. Then start to assess other places on other ways that you can improve upon your business. But if you try to improve your business without improving that internal conversation and that inner self-talk, it really won't ever work. And for me, I see it, that's always when I start doing worse. I always start failing more when I'm down. When I start to tell myself it's never going to happen, nobody cares, you know, the industry's so messed up, whatever it is, whatever that internal dialogue is, the second it goes down that negative path, I start to see all the opportunities dry up.
Right.
Yeah.
So that negativity is breeding negativity, right? I mean,
100%.
At the end of the day, it's putting yourself in a positive mindset, making sure the laws of attraction, because the laws of attraction, whether you want to believe in it or not, it's real, right?
So
like
real.
This is exactly what you're saying. It's like you think negative, everything in your life is going to end up being negative, you know, slowly, and sometimes fast. But at the end of the day, it's like putting yourself in that positive mindset, you know, affirming and getting out there and just saying, like, just telling yourself and giving yourself pep talks from time to time. Talk about, you know, embracing something and know what you stand for, and talk about how you're going to be successful. I think, and just, you have to live it too, right? You have to action stuff. You can't just get up every morning and say, I'm going to be successful, you know, and you're positive about it, but then everything else reflects in negativity. But it's like, because you're not putting the actions in place to make yourself successful. You're just saying it. Right.
It's
so
true.
I believe if you believe in your journey and you take the right steps along the way and make sure you're staying positive, and negative things are going to happen. Like I said, we're human. And so we have that human emotion of negativity. And sometimes, I mean, you're like, why me? Why is this happening to me? Everything bad's happening to me. But there's so many people in the world that have it so worse than us. Right.
It's true.
And then it's like, you got to get yourself to that negative place and just take the step forward and continue to know that, hey, I might have failed this time, but the next thing I'm going to do is succeed, and I'm going to succeed in a huge way. So.
Yeah. I mean, oftentimes we're not paying attention enough to our assets. I always imagine this picture of a little girl, and in front of her is just a giant pile of dog poop. And behind her is a pile of gold. But because she's sitting in front of the dog poop and looking at the dog poop, she's just so sad and crying, and she doesn't even realize right behind her is a pile of gold.
Focusing on the wrong thing.
You know, so that's, you got to know where to focus your energy.
Definitely. Yeah. I think we do tend to do that, you know, just as humans, we, you know, it's easy to focus on the negative things and, you know, talk about them on and on and on, or, you know, really not pay attention to all the good stuff that could be happening around you. And then, you know, we all have dark periods, right? We're not, it's impossible like that. You know, we get our internal monologue going in the right direction, and we get all this positive energy. Eventually it's going to go down at some point, you know, for whatever reason. So I think it's important to figure out how to adjust that too. And what are the things, I think it's probably different for everybody, but I feel like everybody has certain things that they can do to help them get back in that positive mental space.
Yeah. I mean, I have a menu. I have a whole menu of things that I choose from, you know, everything from, like I was saying, like meditations to affirmations to certain books and certain things I listen to, certain activities I do. I just have this menu of like, if I start to see myself going that way, I just kind of pick from the grab bag that day of what I think is going to help give me the, that lift and kind of get me back going in a positive direction. So like, that's another thing that I think is really important, like having an arsenal of ways to get yourself back on track that work for you, that you can have access to and pull from at any time.
Yeah. And the utility belt, right? You just pull into it, boom, here it is. That's awesome.
That's right.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And it changes. I mean, sometimes it could be like, for me, it'll be just pushing through something, like getting something done, even if it's like, I don't know, maybe I need to go clean something and just get, accomplish a task. Right. And then it's like, all right, I feel good about that. And then you accomplish another task, and then so it can kind of build on itself.
Yeah, totally. And cleaning is such a great example, actually, because there's actually psychology rooted in that our brains literally actually recognize and empathize with our surroundings. This is like an actual neuroscience thing that I've read about many times. And that when you clean and organize your space, your brain automatically feels like it has space.
Definitely. Yep.
And so like that's a great thing to put in your arsenal. It's like, okay, it's just, you're not getting any sales. You've been making calls. You've been sending emails. You just feel so down. It's like, just go clean up your bedroom, man.
Yep.
You're gonna
vacuum the floor.
Right?
Yep.
Like,
definitely. Yeah.
or whatever. Like, it's a victory, and it will actually make you feel better and give you that little extra push to keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah. We kind of mirror the thing. Like my office was an absolute mess for a while. I was literally like elbowing stuff out of the way to get to my mouse. And it was crazy because I was kind of thinking my thought was very narrow-minded and short-sighted, I guess, where I was like, all right, I got to get something done. Cleaning my office doesn't pay the bills. So I've got to, get to my work, do what I need to do. But then as soon as after at a certain point, I'm like, man, I got to clear all that stuff out. I've got to clean this up. It's insane. And as soon as I did that, it definitely freed me up mentally. It's amazing. Yeah. You're definitely
reducing
right.
actual clutter helps declutter your brain.
Yeah. Cause it's all in there. I feel like we just take like mental inventory of all that stuff. So
it's magic.
That's crazy. Well, Shayna, as we wrap up this episode, what is one piece of advice you think you could give to our audience to help them on their entrepreneurial journey? I mean, we just talked about improving that inner monologue and making sure you're positive, but is there, so I'm sure that would be a big thing, but is there anything else that, you think is at the top of your list for, a piece of advice?
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing I would leave people with is maybe a little counterintuitive, which is sometimes it's okay to pause. Right? As entrepreneurs, we oftentimes feel like we constantly have to be going. We constantly have to be productive. And it becomes really a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour job. And, part of what can feel so overwhelming is this sense like, when is it ever going to happen? When am I ever going to get there? And sometimes what we forget is, we're there. Like right now, we're there. This is it, right? Today could be the last day. Here we are. And so take pauses, take breaks, remember to breathe, remember to enjoy life. It's not always about making it. Sometimes it's just about being. And that when you're not ready yet, when you're not sure, when you're thinking maybe you've got some different ideas brewing or some different content brewing and you're not sure yet, maybe the best thing to do rather than running in 8 million different directions and pushing yourself is to like be still and kind of let it come to you. And then once you really are sure and once you really are ready, then go out there with guns blazing. But there's nothing wrong with sometimes just being still and enjoying life, because that is, again, part of what's going to really help you be successful. I mean, I'm sure you guys have talked about burnout on this, show. Yeah. And, I think that stillness and pausing is one of the best ways to manage burnout. So that's what I would say. Like, it's okay. Just let it be. Let it, you know, I have a thing that I say, show up, let go. Show up, let go. And that really is like the ebb and flow of how this thing becomes a dance instead of a fight.
Right.
That's a perfect way to end this episode and wrap it up for sure, Shayna.
Yeah.
From the both of us, though, Shayna, we want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us and adding value to what we're doing on this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome and obviously have a ton of insight, and I'm sure your viewers love you. I can't wait to start tuning into episodes.
Definitely.
It's awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Shayna. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening to That Entrepreneur Life. To learn more about what Shayna is working on, check out our website at shaynamore.com. That's SHAYNAMORE.com. If you like what you heard today, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or any other major podcast directory. You can also find us on all the socials and on our website at thatentrepreneurlife.com.
And with that said, guys, we also want to quickly give a special shout out to our family and friends, like always, to include our listeners, our followers and subscribers. If you find value in what we do on this show, please consider making a small donation to show your support. Even just a few dollars helps us keep things moving along or brings value to your entrepreneurial journey. Thanks for continuing to support what we do as entrepreneurs. And don't forget, guys, to join us next week for another episode of That Entrepreneur Life.
Thanks for listening to That Entrepreneur Life podcast. Be sure to visit thatentrepreneurlife.com to join the conversation, access our show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode as we continue to add value. Until next time.